Okay, Western Derby 59 has come to an end. It ends in defeat by 35 points to Fremantle, who, as much as I hate to say it, are the third best team in the competition. I've let this one sit for a little while. Usually I record straight after the game. I decided to go to the gym first, clear my head, and I think ultimately I feel a little bit less negative about it than I did a few hours ago. I suppose that's natural. But I suppose there's a couple ways to look at this game and express the vibe that I'm feeling about the Eagles right now. We can assess the general, vibe of the club and how things have been going over the stretch of time, or we can isolate this game and analyze it for the game that it was. And I think you reach two different feelings, or at least I do, right? So on the one hand, we did play pretty well. We played a very good side, who I think really went into fifth gear in that third term, and we didn't have the legs to match it. Now, was there physical fatigue? Was there mental fatigue? It was a skill thing. It was probably all of those things. Mind you, we did, I think, run out the game okay. I just think that Fremantle had a gear that we just do not have, and they were able to exploit us with their leg speed in particular. They started winning the ball out of the centre much more consistently. They were sort of edging us in that stat, centre stoppages and clearances and stuff. And then in the third quarter, they really broke us open, and then past that, we're able to use their outside game, coupled with the fact that Josh Tracy had an amazing quarter, man. What a gun player he's turned out to be. I didn't see that coming, to be honest. But he was marking everything within his vicinity. He was kicking goals from everywhere. And it took that to beat us. Admittedly, the third quarter in totality wasn't great. But we did make it tough for him, absolutely. And I think there can be some degree of satisfaction with that. However, on the other hand, you can factor in, the last 10 weeks, and I don't want to bang on about it. I want to try and, I feel like part of my job here is to isolate this game. But overall, I think we're all getting a little bit of fatigue where, our best performances that we're seeing at the moment are when we challenge the opposition, but ultimately don't get that close to winning. So when you consider, there's still a fairly mature team, sort of. I know we're top and bottom heavy, I keep saying that. I think there is a fairly reasonable limit on how much satisfaction we can take from this. And that's before you even consider the fact that it's a derby and we don't like losing to Fremantle. But overall, great intensity game. And we brought part of that, the pressure rating in the first half. Both teams were over 200. I don't know exactly how they calculate that, but I know that over 200 is elite and both teams were ranking highly for that. So Fremantle, whilst they certainly weren't their best selves in that first half, they were trying hard, at least from an intensity point of view, and we were as well. And, we were 3 goals up halfway through the third term. And I really didn't want to get my hopes up. I didn't really feel like we were ever going to win this game. But there was a point, I think in the third quarter of the stream, I went to the bathroom and I thought about it and I was like, it hit me. I was like, what if we do it again? What if we do it again? Only for it to ultimately end badly. But overall, smashed with leg speed, smashed on the outside, couldn't put in a 4-quarter performance. Even though I don't think we dropped our heads, I think we kept fighting. I just don't think we're that good, which we probably already knew. So as we will typically do, we'll move through some negatives and positives, and I'll talk about a little bit about the Waffle and potential changes, although, of course, I will do more of that as the week progresses. So one thing, particularly in the first half, that we were doing really well was uncontested footy. And, if you've been watching the channel for a while, I've been talking about that lately. We're just getting slaughtered on the outside. We're not even... we're just conceding a lot of uncontested footy and not being able to put on pressure on because we're conceding a lot of uncontested marks. And yet, when the game was on our terms in the first quarter and a half, let's call it, they ended up coming back a bit towards the end of the second term and levelling the quarter. But for like a quarter and a half, we were dominating the uncontested footy. I think we had 30 more uncontested marks. At one point, it was 73-40. And generally, I think overall we had 21 more uncontested marks in them. Funnily enough, actually, we ended up with 76 uncontested marks, which means we only had 3 towards the back end of the game. I don't remember exactly the timeline on that, but that's obviously one way they shut us down. They stopped us controlling the footy on the outside. So that's at least a different dimension to something that we don't normally do, although our ball use overall was horrendous. And I think there were skill errors from both teams. I think Fremantle let us off a few times with some fumbles. But ultimately, that does come down to pressure, and both teams were applying it really well. Another positive is that while we got slaughtered in the third term, it was 10 scoring shots to 1. The fact that we did have some sort of response in the last quarter was something. And it's just something to acknowledge that we don't normally do that. It's not overwhelmingly positive, but we did have more scoring shots than them, for instance, in the last term. We ended up losing the quarter by a couple of goals. I think it was 2 goals 4 to 5 goals straight. So, had we kicked a little bit straighter, we might have made this game a little bit closer than it eventually was. But at least we kept trying to right to the end. We also laid 10 tackles inside 50. Obviously, much was said of the fact that we laid 0 last week. I think we were able to park the footy in our front half a lot better in this game, particularly when it was going well. The ball was sort of locked in and we were forcing repeat stoppages, at least in the front half of the field for us, and that allowed us obviously to get a few more tackles inside 50, which was something that is positive. I suppose we'll run through some individuals. I think Yo worked really hard in this game. He's been really consistent all year. 26 disposals, 7 clearances, 7 tackles. A little bit more outside game from him, a lot of pace used, which was nice. Harley Reid was fantastic. I don't think anyone can criticise his performance today. I know that he really gets under the skin of Fremantle fans. And he is, a bit of a, I don't know, I don't want to say dickhead on the field, but I mean that he has, that personality that riles people up. And I love it. And that wasn't a criticism of him at all. I don't think he's a dickhead. I like the way he goes about it. Unfortunately, there's a team thing at the moment. I don't think it's just Harley or anything like that. But I said this on the stream. I feel like so often, once or twice a game, we give away a free kick right in front of goal, or we give up a 50-metre penalty that leads to a goal. Harley was responsible for one of them in this game, but I don't necessarily want to focus that on him. I think as a team we're doing it. I think Witherden did it a few weeks ago, and I was very vocal about that. But look, on Harley's performance, he had the most disposals he's ever had, and this was a very blue-collar, hard-working performance from him. 29 disposals, 10 clearances, and 6 inside 50s. And he, even when he messes up, things still end up in a either good or neutral situation. I think he's just one of those classy players. And I actually had the thought recently. I was like, look at this game. Imagine if we had traded Harley Reid for 6, 15 and 17 or whatever North was offering us. Like, not even ignoring the big picture stuff, just think about how our midfield would have lined up in this game. If you take away Harley Reid and look at all our other young midfielders, Hewitt's on the sidelines, Jinby has been withdrawn from midfield duties. I don't think they thought it was going particularly well. Maybe he is a defender. Hopefully he comes back. Jai Cully, 7 touches in this game. I don't want to rag on the kid. I do like Jai Cully, but if that's the depth of our midfield stocks, just imagine what it'd be like without Harley Reid in this team. I thought Bailey Williams had a really honourable day today. I don't think he's had a very good year, but he had 13 disposals and 32 hit-outs against the best ruck combo in the league in Sean Darcy and Luke Jackson, and really strong marks as well. He's starting to get better at clunking marks around the ground, and I think that really showed tonight. I'm not saying he won the ruck battle, but he did better than I expected against what is a very good 1-2 punch in Jackson and Sean Darcy. Tom Cole also probably had his best game for the club in a long time, and I don't remember Tom Cole playing this well since about 2020, and I think he had a pretty good year in 2020. And that's just me going off the memory. I could have that wrong and being unkind to Tom Cole, but I don't feel like he's featured in our best for a very long time. And I would give him that credit with 26 disposals and 9 marks. And a couple of the young talls. Harry Edwards, I think, continues to make strides. There's been doubts around him. He's had no continuity, but he just looked every bit an AFL standard key back in this game. And I think he did really well with Gov out. And I think he's one that we need to keep in the team for the rest of the year. Same thing with Jack Williams. Again, the stats won't tell it. He had 4 marks, 13 disposals and a goal, but the strength of the marks he's taking and his composure generally, and he doesn't really make mistakes, and his competitiveness, I think, again, I didn't see this coming from Jack Williams, and I'm really pleased that we have him. So again, another player we need to keep in this team. A point on Tim Kelly. I've seen a lot of negativity around him, and I don't agree with it. I'm not going to say that it was an amazing performance, but he had 32 touches, a goal, and 18 contested possessions, meaning more than half of the footy that he won was in dispute. And while I think his polish has been poor, the whole team by foot tonight was diabolical. Again, some of that is pressure, but I think it's been a problem all year. Our ball use. And I don't remember him particularly standing out for making mistakes, personally. I could be wrong. But he worked hard. He worked hard in a team that, we were playing a very good midfield, arguably one of the best in the competition, and certainly in terms of depth. I think Waterman and Ryan impacted pretty well without dominating. I suppose Waterman probably, I think he had a very good game, albeit patchy. And Liam Ryan was kind of like, I didn't even think he was playing that well. He actually looked a little bit slow in this game. I don't know if he's carrying something. I think his knee's strapped. But he still kicked 2 goals. Between them, they kicked 5. Petrocelli, I don't think, had a massive impact. Still kicked 2 goals. So there's something to be said for that, I suppose. 45 inside 50s is better than we have been doing lately. but it's still not great. The clearance count is actually pretty decent, I reckon. So 45 to 37 is pretty good when you consider Fremantle's clearance differential. They are number one in the league and triple the second best team. So for us to only lose that by 8, when you consider the hit-outs were 65 to 37, I think our mids battle really well. And obviously, in that third quarter, we got blown apart a little bit, but I think the resistance against a pretty good team was definitely there. So my list of negatives for this game is shorter, but it's, don't take that to mean that there's more positives than negatives in every single loss. Sometimes it's just the negatives are so much more powerful than the silver linings that I'm finding. But of course, positive and negatives are relative to your expectations as well. And, if I didn't tip us to lose by 35, I tipped us to lose by 70, and then I brought that back to 44. So by default, we've exceeded my expectations. So that's me personally. I'd never expected us to win this game. But scoring shots in the third term, like I said, were 10 to 1. And they kicked 5 goals, 5. And albeit we went into the three-quarter time only 21 points down, but that could have been worse. Overall, as the game went on, we were winning uncontested footy, but by the end of the game, we got smashed in both contested ball by 21 and uncontested ball. Like I said, our ball use was also poor. I think our composure wasn't great. Jamie Cripps was a really bad culprit for this. Again, for the second week in a row. I think he was worse last week, but a little bit sloppy from Jamie Cripps. Same thing with Oscar Allen. He's still trying to find his feet. I talked about free kick discipline. I think that's been a problem for a number of weeks, not even in this game. And maybe a couple of injury concerns as well. Zane True, obviously, I think it's a neck injury, not a concussion. He's got a bit of whiplash, and he's gone to hospital just to see if he's all right. So I don't know if he's unavailable for next week, but hopefully he's okay. Really unfortunate. It was the first opening seconds of the game, yet he still managed 4 fantasy points. It's not bad. And there was also, I read somewhere Luke Edwards might be, but I can't find that evidence of that anywhere. I do remember a shot to the bench of him at the end, but I have not found confirmation from Schofield's press conference or the article at all suggesting Luke Edwards is injured. But you know how the Eagles are like. The injury update might come out on a Tuesday. He might not be mentioned, but he'll be laid out for the game next week. So overall, to summarise that game, like I said, yes, it was an honourable loss. I am sure, like me, some of you are getting a little bit sick of this stale feeling of playing well against good teams and ultimately not getting close to winning, and it's just a bit of a stale feeling. And I suppose it's progress. I wish that maybe more of our youngsters were providing positives than they were, other than there's a handful that I mentioned. Harley Reid is an enormous positive. But we're still relying on some of our best players to play well. And, it'd be more pleasing if it was a bit more of an even contribution. I still think we have a few passengers, and that's to be expected. But we do have some winnable games coming up. And I say winnable in the loosest possible terms. We've got Gold Coast next Friday night. I will be streaming. And then we have, I think, North Melbourne's the next game after that in Hobart. And those are relatively winnable, although I don't feel like tipping us right at this point in time. Quick couple of points on the Waffle and some potential ideas for changes before we finish up. In the Waffle, we played fairly well against a Subiaco side that is up and down. We only lost by 3 goals. Again, this is progress. Sheed and Gaffer, unfortunately, our best players in the Waffle game. Other than that, I know that Tyrell Dewar had 18 possessions on a wing, and I still think probably should come back into this team. Matthew Flynn returned from injury, had 42 hitouts, 18 disposals. So that is worth considering, and I think if he potentially came in, you got to drop Jack Darling, because I think we're right at the precipice of having, I think we were probably already at the point of having too many tools, albeit it kind of worked tonight. That being said, I'm not in a rush to get Flynn back, but you have to drop Darling if you do that. Chesser played 16 disposals, 4 marks, a little bit lighter than we'd ideally want. We want him getting his hands on the footy and really impacting, and he's still building to that, and it didn't come this week. I don't know what happened to Harvey Johnston, didn't play this week. So as for potential changes, McGovern's got to come in from Rotherham. I didn't mention Rotherham in this video, but I don't even remember him kicking the ball tonight. I think he had 5 touches. Duggan for True, presuming that True is injured. Liam Duggan will come back in. Hopefully he's okay. And then, to be honest, you could go with Flynn in for Darling. If you decided that Flynn can stay in the Waffle, then maybe Dewar for Darling. And then, there's Luke Edwards, and if he misses, then we're probably looking at Chesser or Johnston, to be honest. Such is the lack of our depth at the moment. Or, Dewar could come in for Cully. I don't know. These are just ideas at this point, and we'll get some more clarity through the week once we get the injury list. And then, like I said, I'll probably be doing my previews after the teams come out on Thursday. Mind you, this week that would be tough, simply because the game is on Friday. We'll see what happens. But overall, Yeah, it's deflating, to be honest. Like, we did play well, and I can't sit here and say that we didn't play better than I expected, and at times looked pretty good in that game, albeit the third term again showing signs of falling away. I don't know if it was as pathetic and listless as it's been in the last couple of months. I think it took Fremantle really lifting, and we had no response, and thankfully, after they sort of settled down a little bit, we were able to then get some more shots on goal, and obviously had more than they did in the last quarter, even if we were inaccurate with them. So there's something to be said for that, but, how much is it considered progress if we have this honourable loss and then we go next week and get belted, It's got to be a sustained run of this improved form to really move the needle for me in terms of being comfortable with where we're at. But I don't know if that's realistic at the moment. So anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. Also, by all means, let me know some ideas for content this week. I will, I'd like to upload just about daily on True Eagle this week. So let me know any ideas you want to see. And for now, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.